Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Purpose and Profit. Today, I am joined by the amazing Teresa, and she is here today to share with us her big vision, her Thrive movement, how she does business and faith combined. And I am so excited to dive into this conversation. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, I kind of want to chunk it up in pieces because you definitely had like a journey to get here. So tell me about, I know you kind of started in corporate America, kind of take me through that and where you were in that phase of your life.
Yeah, so corporate America. Let's start back in college because I was working as a transaction coordinator for an agent just to pay for, my college tuition. So that's kind of like where I got exposed to real estate back in college, trying to earn my way to paying for college. And at that time, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll be a realtor because this guy that I'm working for is like making buku money. He has rentals left and right. Maybe that's what I need to do. Got into real estate, got my license, realized that wasn't for me. And so I pivoted while I'm in college, taking real estate classes I actually got my license, but rather than focusing on real estate at that time, decided that, you know what, let me get into marketing. Um, the reason why I got into marketing actually was because obviously as a realtor, you have to do a lot of sales, right? You have to be a good salesperson talking to your buyers, to your sellers and whatnot. And at that time, I had the mindset that, I'm not a salesperson because to me at that time, again, when someone tells me that they're a salesperson, the picture that comes to mind is, a used car salesman. And I was like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be pushy because to me, I think sales was like pushy and stuff like that. Right. And so, but I like that entire journey that the customer walks through. And so I decided, okay, maybe marketing. That way, like, I still have that, I still get to do sales, but not on a one-on-one basis or like, selling that way. And so I got into marketing. First job out of college was the first corporate marketing hire at a digital marketing agency in Silicon Valley. And again, that was also part in real estate because we serviced the hotel industry. So boutique hotels, corporate, big chain hotels and whatnot. And learned a lot about marketing from that company, from traditional marketing, to digital marketing, to so much more. And then left that company to go into big corporations, Google, Signifyd. Those are like the three unicorn or beyond unicorn companies that I worked for, and did marketing there as well. And really enjoyed my job or what I did for those corporations, but it felt like it was draining my soul, right? Because at that time, all I did was like, work to survive or work to move up the corporate ladder. But it didn't have meaning. It didn't have purpose other than creating income, right? And at that time, I was like, well, I'm doing well at my last corporate exit was actually Neum, which is a fintech company. And I was like, I'm doing well here, right? I'll just stay because income's really good. I'm living the lifestyle that I liked, right? Able to travel and all that stuff. Didn't have to worry about money. And that was like my thought at that time was like, that was the ultimate goal, that you don't have to worry about money, but it still felt empty, right? And in 2021, I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. Now, at that time, yes, I was still working my W-2, but there were times where I had to miss work because of my treatments and my surgeries and things like that. And then, I was just thinking, well, if this was the time that God calls me home, what if I don't beat this disease? What would happen? Like, did I live the life for the purpose that God has put me on this earth for? And the answer that I got was no. All you focused on was like, how do you move up the corporate ladder so that your family's well off financially? But that's it. Like, there's no meaning to it, right? And so I just got down on my knees and I prayed to God. I was like, God, if I'm meant for more, and if it's in your will and you give me a second chance, I'm gonna live my second life fulfilling that purpose that you've given me. I don't know what that is, but that's what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm just gonna surrender and leave it up to you, right? And so that's what I did. And then the bill started coming in for my treatments, surgeries, doctor visits, and all that stuff. And it was over $275,000. And that still I still feel a pit in my stomach every time I mention that amount, because it's an amount that could paralyze a family financially. And that was kind of like where my husband and I were at, where we were asset rich, cash poor. And so we were thinking, okay, well, I have cancer. I have like all these bills that we have to pay for. Like, should we liquidate everything, sell our primary, sell our rental properties, like just so that we could afford, and have a fighting chance to beat this disease? And so we decided maybe, but let's pray to God first, find out what he has in plan for us. And so we prayed, and I kid you not, that same week, my life insurance agent, who happens to be my husband's aunt, heard about my diagnosis. You see, at that time I was very private. I don't like to tell people my business, right? But she heard that I had cancer, and so she called me that same week and asked me, like, is it true, first, and second, how are we doing financially, right? Am I worried about paying for the bills? And I said, yeah, we're kind of like, struggling right now. We have to maybe sell our properties. And she goes, well, that life insurance policy that I forced you to buy when your daughter was born 7 years ago? I was like, yeah. Did you even read the contract that I gave you? And I was like, I glanced at it, and she goes, well, that your policy has what we call the living benefits or illness riders. And what that means is, because you were diagnosed with a critical illness, that you're able to accelerate the death benefit while you're alive, so you could use that money, the money that your family would have inherited in case God calls you home. You could take that money and use it for your treatments. And I could feel it still right now, but that was a boulder lifted off my shoulders, right? And so at that point, I felt that that was my calling. God had me go through that journey so that I would answer to my calling, and that is to become a life insurance agent, right? Because statistics that I'll share with you is that 1 out of 3 women will get diagnosed of cancer, heart attack, or stroke. 1 out of 2 men will get diagnosed with that, right? And 78% of Americans right now are living paycheck to paycheck, which means that they can't afford their treatments. Another statistic is that 80% of people who file for bankruptcy because of medical bills, which is the number one reason of bankruptcy, 80, if they file for bankruptcy and is going through these illnesses, 80% of people will die from their illness because they can't. One is because they're stressed on 2 things. They're trying to beat this illness, and 2, finances, right? So their immune system is really just shot. And so because of that, I said, well, I was blessed that I had this policy. I didn't even have to worry about, paying $275,000 of medical bills. This is something that every American should know, you know. One is because it's helping them for the just in case, which stats show it's not it's not a it's not it's higher likelihood that someone will get diagnosed with one of these diseases. So you need to make sure that you're prepared for that, for the just in case. And so I decided to become a life insurance agent, but no one wants to talk to me about life insurance. Because people think, okay, that's another expense. I'm already paying this and that. That's another expense. And it makes me more valuable dead than alive. And I'm like, no, there's so much more about life insurance. And so I've pivoted, really dove into what really is, all the benefits that life insurance could offer, because obviously I didn't know about the living benefits, but I was a recipient of it. What else can life insurance do? And so I dove in deeper and learned about infinite banking, which is one of the things that I'm doing right now. And with infinite banking, I found a way to combine two things that I'm passionate about, and that is real estate investing and life insurance, protecting people. By combining those and having um, a message around infinite banking, then more people want to listen to me and learn more about that strategy. So that is kind of like the journey that I've taken from, you know, my corporate world, being in the marketing world, Silicon Valley, and then why did I leave that cushy, career into something that I didn't have experience in, and just took that leap of faith.
That's incredible. And seeing along your journey how so many things came back into play. But one of the things I really want to touch on, because I saw this in your story a lot, is like the numerous mindset shifts that you have gone from, like when you were in college and thinking like, oh, well, I should be an agent, and then trying that out a little bit. And you're like, oh, no, that doesn't work for me. And then trying sale, or thinking that you're not into sales. Ironically, do you learn later that maybe you just need a purpose behind your sales in order to drive that forward.
Mhm.
Um, but you've overcome so many mental obstacles in all of this. And like, I still felt the relief when you talked about how when your husband's aunt called you and she said, oh, you can use this life insurance thing. And how do you work with people to help them catch up to you, to see the unlimited amount of possibilities in combination to the protections that they're providing for their family and stuff? Like, how do you envision bringing those two together?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's mindset, right? We talked about like how I switched my mindset so many times. And unfortunately, that is what's holding back a lot of people in taking action. It's mindset. So you really have to work on yourself first before you jump into something, right? It's similar to like, why is someone, it seems like no matter what they do, they're just getting themselves deeper and deeper into debt, right? It's because it's the mindset that, one, this is kind of like the situation that I was put into. This is the life that I was brought up into. So it's just kind of like the life that I was brought in. But they're not thinking about like, well, there's other ways for you to, get out of the situation you're in. It's not just one way. And it starts with education, right? One, it's mindset, but your mindset's there because you don't know what you don't know. So you have to learn something else in order to see, oh yeah, and see the light at the end of the tunnel. Is like there's something else that you could do to get yourself out of the situation. And I was also, I was there too, right, back in the day where, you know um like, again, like I said, I had a cushy W-2, and I didn't want to jump into entrepreneurship because I had a cushy W-2, and the mindset of thinking this is more, having a W-2 is safer than entrepreneurship. And I think it's because we were taught that way in school, right? We were taught to, go to school, get good grades, go to college, find a good job, and live that American dream. But it's not safe anymore, especially in this economy where corporations are, laying off left and right. A lot of people, I know people who were laid off a few years ago and still can't find a job. It's not that they're not qualified. People are saying they're overqualified. It's just another way of saying, we're not going to pay your right, worth and whatnot. But it's now switching that mindset. I see that being an entrepreneur is actually safer, because as an entrepreneur, who's going to fire you but yourself? And I don't want to fire myself. I mean, I could fight with myself. I don't want to work today, but I can't fire myself. So I think, again, the first thing is like your mindset, switching that mindset. And if it's hard for you to switch that mindset, look for ways to educate yourself. And second, find mentors who could help you and guide you. So yeah, I mean, I've talked to so many people, and I would not sell them an infinite banking policy if their mindset isn't right. Because let's just say that, their habits and their mindset is all about like, using their debt to, splurge and, do these things that's not going to bring them revenue, right? Pretty much acquiring bad debt. I'm not going to put you on infinite banking policy, because I know what you're going to do. You're going to take out debt and just spend it on something that might not even bring back anything to you. So first is like, let's work on your mindset before I even get you into infinite banking policy, because infinite banking won't work unless you're using it to, help you thrive, right? For investing or something like that. Don't get infinite banking thinking, oh, I could borrow against this, and my family and I can go on a luxury vacation next month. It's not what it's made for, so yeah.
I think that's beautiful too, because I imagine that there's a lot of people in this space that don't have that same consideration, whereas you're trying to provide a holistic approach to make sure that people succeed in the long run, which is just incredible. So obviously you took this huge, like, I don't even know, like, cancer is chaotic and unpredictable. And I lost my dad to it in December. And I think about, like you said, corporate America. I think about how you probably have to take off crazy amount of time that you're not expecting, as you're going through treatments and as you are doing the doctor appointments and you're not feeling your best. And it's like ebbs and flows, right? Like he would have times that he's good at 2 a.m. in the morning, and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he couldn't do anything. And so the freedom and the beauty of entrepreneurship is that you can adjust and you can pivot those things to your lifestyle to make everything work. And so I think that that's a beautiful tie-in to, your change of path, is that you also gained that like flexibility that allowed you to do what you needed to do in those time frames. I think that's incredible. And I think that the movement that you're doing, and that you're partnering with people to prepare them for all of these things. I mean, you're coming at protecting their families and protecting their finances and protecting their time. And I'm sure you wish you could just scream it from the rooftops to get everybody to kind of like join you and like understand. But if someone's wanting to reach out to you and gain all of these valuable insights, how do you want someone to reach out to you to kind of connect and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. First, before I do that, I would like to say, I am sorry to hear about your father. And yes, truly like cancer really affects us as the people who were diagnosed, but I see how it also affects so much to those people who love us and supporting us. So, I understand how it has affected you guys as well, because I saw it in my husband's, face and the way everything, right? So, yeah, I am so sorry to hear about your father's passing. But to go back to that, if people are interested in, reaching out to me and getting to know more about the Thrive movement, um, they can just reach out via Instagram. I would say I can give you a whole bunch of ways to connect with me, but let's keep it simple. Hit me up on Instagram. You can DM me at Build Wealth with Trey. And yeah, that's where you can connect with me.
That's incredible. Do you have any last minute, like if you had to share with anyone on just what you're hoping? I know that your impact will be big, especially I know your goal is to, help 500 families in the next couple of years, which I can't even imagine conceptually anyone like hearing this and being like, nah, I think I'll pass. But is there anything that you wish to say to like the greater audience to just really kind of drive that home?
Yeah, I would say that, I'm a believer. I praise God for everything that I have in my life, the good and the bad, because the bad has made me who I am today. I truly believe that. Unfortunately, I personally think that cancer for me, my own experience, was a wake up call that God allowed for me to go through so that I would wake up and finally live for the purpose that He's put me on this earth for, right? If it wasn't for that, I would probably still be working my 9 to 5. Actually, it's an around the clock job because my last exit, I was a global marketing leader. So I was working around the clock to service my teammates in other parts of the country. I mean, other parts of the globe. But it's going to take a leap of faith to really believe that you have a bigger purpose on this earth for. And you just have to trust that God has a plan for you. He has plans to prosper you. And you just have to take that leap of faith. Unfortunately, humans, we are nurtured to really have that mindset of that we need to take control of everything, anything and everything. And for my personal experience, I saw that when I tried to control everything, that's when chaos happens. And when I just surrendered to God, things just, fall into place. So that's my last comment. And hopefully it sticks.
Well, that's beautiful. And I just have to say that I definitely think that you are a badass for surviving cancer the way that you have and using this to propel you forward in such a beautiful way. So I think it's incredible. And so thank you for sharing your journey with me. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you for having me.